Welcome back to The Authentic Advantage, everyone. I'm your host, Angie Tajweedi. And today's conversation is one I think a lot of people need right now because we spend so much time talking about business growth, leadership, success, but we don't spend nearly enough time talking about the humans behind it. Today, I'm joined with Suzanne Fazalare, who's an empowerment coach and people development strategist with over 15 years of experience in recruiting, coaching, and workplace culture transformation. Suzanne has spent years helping people unlock potential, build confidence, lead authentically, and create careers and workplaces that feel aligned. And I really think this conversation matters because so many people today are burned out trying to become successful and they're just losing themselves in the process. I was victim of that too. So today we're talking leadership, identity, career growth, confidence, purpose, and what it really means to build a meaningful career in today's world. So Suzanne, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Angie. I am so glad to be here and just be with your listeners. It's exciting. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you. You have so much going on behind the scenes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I live in the greater Los Angeles area. I grew up here. I've been here since I've been 1 years old. I come from a big family. I have spent my time in talent acquisition and have transitioned myself in being an empowerment coach. And yes, we're both locals. So glad to be on this podcast with another local.
I know, I love that. We were already talking about how we're going to get together in person
That's
soon, so
right.
I'm very excited. So we're going to kick off this episode with a little game, Would You Rather, so we can get to know Suzanne a little bit. All right, are you ready for number 1?
I'm ready.
Okay. Would you rather work for a great boss at a mediocre company or a terrible boss at your dream company?
I'm going to go with a dream boss at a mediocre company. I have worked in some great companies with not so great bosses, and I feel they make the difference in how my day and, my time that I spend, a good amount of time, right? We all spend at work really goes. And if someone is more personable, cares about the work I'm doing, engage totally trumps working at my dream company.
I 1000% agree with that. I always say it's not the company you work for, it's who you work for that really makes the difference in your
The
day to day.
team. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Would you rather work 4 days a week, but 10-hour days, or 5 days a week, but 6-hour days?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for the 4 because sometimes you're already working 9 hours, and I think I'd like the stretch of 4 10-hour days and get the 3-day weekend, and that would be my jam. Yes.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, especially as entrepreneurs, like we're working well beyond the 10 hours. But
Right.
even for a company, I think I would like to have that stretch too. Okay, last one. Would you rather have a boss who micromanages or a boss who disappears completely?
That one's a
Because I've had both.
I know, I've had both, and I really don't, because I want some kind of a connection with my boss, but I don't want them in my business all day, every day, checking on every little, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. But I also don't want someone, but at this place, I mean, someone who I guess with the boss that's not there, I can have the autonomy I want. I maybe I'm gonna shine a little light that that boss just trusts me with what I'm doing, and so I think I'd still lean towards that versus micromanaging any day.
I cannot do the micromanaging.
Right.
Again, I've had both, but it's nice when you can, if they disappear completely. Well, I'm like you, I need to have a connection. I'm such a people person. So I'd probably feel a little lost in the beginning, but then knowing that I can go get creative and not have to run everything by someone is always nice. Okay, awesome. I love this. So it's a fun fact. I always play Would You Rather with my kids. It's not this version, but it's such a fun game to pass the time. And now I'm like addicted to it. So here I am rolling it into the podcast.
I love it.
I have to know, so coming from talent acquisition all those years, what originally pulled you into coaching?
Yeah. So I think for me, being a recruiter and talent acquisition, interviewing many people on their career path, I've found, especially since it's no longer in person, it used to be when I started in person where I'd actually sit down with someone. It is now, let me do a 30-minute phone screen interview and then pass you off to the team. And I've gotten really
Hmm.
good at assessing people and getting what I need out of the conversation, but I do really miss getting to know a person more and what's kind of behind their interest and their intentions. What are they looking for? And so coaching just seemed to lend to be a natural transition for me. I have a communications major background. I was a journalist. That was journalism was my focus. And so tying in that element again of being with someone, hearing their story, and then in the coaching element versus a career per se, but really helping them in life transformations or transitions. And so, yeah, I really enjoy getting to finally expand on that.
Yeah, I'm seeing that the connection piece is really important. We both touched on that earlier with having a connection with our boss. And I can see how working from home, while it's amazing because we can get a lot more done, right? We do lose that connection. And so I love that you're now out there really making a difference with people. So, on that note, you've seen a lot of talent come through these organizations. What are some of the qualities that stand out most today besides experience? Like when you're
Yeah.
looking at a resume.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, there is experience, but I would say equally, and it's really just continually stood out with whether I was hiring an engineer, a scientist, equally is the personal or the soft skills. Is the person self motivated? Does the person, equally even bring why they're interested in the role? Sometimes managers would interview someone great on paper, but then the candidate would never express why they even had an interest in the role or the team or the company. And it's kind of a matchmaking, right? You want to know
Yeah.
both parties are interested in each other and why. So it's definitely someone who's got good time management, good communication skills, good interpersonal skills, all those soft skills that you typically get through just experience, whether it's you're on a project at college, whether you're, doing you could be working at a Chick-fil-A. I mean, you're going to interact
Yeah.
with people, just some type of people skills because team environments are important, right? You want to bring in someone who is going to be a good match for the team and also has an interest in the type of team that they're joining. So I would say 50% just as much as important as the technical skills.
Yeah. I think sometimes people look at a resume and they make the assumption, well, look at this looks amazing. They have all the other skills. But like you said, that's not always the case. It should be touched on because that really is what builds culture. And it's so, so, so important nowadays.
Right?
So I'm sad you're no longer there helping us figure that out. I'm just kidding. So, what is a limiting belief that you're seeing over and over again now, like in people trying to go grow both professionally and personally?
Well, my target right now is midlife women. And so a limiting belief I just think is, in short, that there is more available to them in whether it's their worth, their dreams, their goals. Women are naturally givers and are doing a lot of outsourcing of who they are to caretake, to whether in a career, to their family, aging parents. So now taking all that energy and going on the inward journey of their power, their true power, and having that ownership is really where I love to work with my clients. And so I believe that's just a mindset shift initially, because again, they've been in roles of identity and they don't know an identity that is 100% themselves. Again, it's tied to other things, other people. And so getting to walk and step into that is just such a beautiful journey. And that's why I also it's a natural journey as menopause and things put certain identities to rest. It's just a natural next step, but I don't think there's no memo we get. There's no instruction manual. No one's training us how to do this. So it's nice to have support. I'm really big on support and asking for help and not doing a journey alone.
That's key. And I think people like you helping women in midlife is so, so vital because, as you know, when we start going through menopause or perimenopause, we don't have a lot of support, right? Like our own doctors, they're very dismissive. Now, I am starting to see a small shift where they're starting to recognize and give therapy earlier and test, but it's still very minimal.
Right.
And having that support, someone like you along the way and helping us recognize those patterns and make those shifts are so vital because I can recognize some of that in myself being a mother, right? Like that's your identity. And it's also kids leaving the house. And then what happens,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and it's just normalizing it. I mean, I'm very grateful that we're and I talk about this on my podcast even that we're at a time where so many people, men and women, are talking about it. But on my podcast, like I've had my mom on there and I've had my niece on there to understand, just what was your journey. And then my niece, what do you think your journey is going to be, being that she's coming into where we're already opening doors and talking about it, lots of information out there. So I'm just glad to be right here, right now, in a time where it's being talked about and normalized or shared, right? Versus a woman going about
Yeah.
the journey alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And just being part of making that change is awesome. Well, have you ever personally struggled with burnout or losing yourself while trying to succeed? Because, that's something that we typically hide from each other.
Yes. And then sometimes I think, well, I always have that mindset of what am I not doing right? Because there's got to be something that I'm doing wrong and I need to just fix it. Right? Like let me
Yeah.
problem solve. I'm a good, women are good problem solvers, taskers. And so definitely with the career of 20 years and the shift of a body that's, going to be around the sun 50 plus years. But at the time, perimenopause for me was my late 40s. And things just start shutting down or shifting. And all of a sudden, what you could do before. Again, you don't get this memo, but there's the switch is off. I call overdrive is no longer available in this model where you can no longer, let me just put that aside and just keep moving forward. I have to actually address things. My body's calling to me, my mind is calling with brain fog, other things. So, yeah. So I think just those so for me, it kind of came crashing actually because my body, I was doing CrossFit and all of a sudden, I think because I wasn't balancing that out, because I could just go, right? So I didn't balance.
Yeah.
What would I need to balance it with? I love doing this. So
Yeah.
my body just took the wear and tear, and maybe it wasn't drinking enough water, maybe it wasn't stretching enough. And it just kind of came crashing down. I became pretty immobile for a good year or more. I had to just walk and do a lot of physical therapy. And the thing that affected my most for me was my mind because again, I couldn't not listen to myself and what was calling me like, "Hey, you've been going at this pace, but you need to slow some things down."
Yeah. Well, the universe has a good way of making it happen for us when we don't listen to our bodies, right? And you said a couple things that made my mind go. We talk about women being in corporate and holding so much responsibility and multitasking and being a parent and doing it all. Yet, I don't think any of these things are recognized to the extent that they should be. Even when we're talking about, like, let's just talk about our monthly. That's not even something that's discussed. There's people who have to take a day off
Right.
because of the pain. Like, these aren't things that we consider, and we're just kind of treated the same. And I think that affects us long term too. Like, we're just taught to suck it up and deal with it and be like everyone else. And are you seeing the same type of thing?
Yeah, I was very enlightened that, or I don't know if that's the right word, but one of my last corporate clients that I was working with, they actually incorporated Maven, which is around women's health, as a resource to the women in their culture. They were very big on mental health. It was the first time really experiencing a company that really not only talked about it, but took it into consideration, made benefits available. And that, on a
I love
scale
that.
yeah, on a scale and so I was hopeful that more of that will continue, but, here in America, I find things are slow to adopt when it comes to, again, just women's health, women's benefits, the fact that you go home and you have another full-time job as a mother. So there's still, I think, a lot more work to be done in that area, definitely. But at least there's some people that are paving a way.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give someone who feels stuck in their career right now and it's no longer aligning with who they are?
I would
I
say
know this is something you and I discussed earlier, right? Because we both ventured out.
yes. Well, I would say, hiring a coach or someone like in your business, even if it's a bit of branding, right? Because I once led for our women's employee resource group. I led an event with a group that was about branding, about still making sure that you're doing your networking internally, not just staying with your boss and your team, but you're having lunch, you're having coffees. I did that
Mm,
for a while where I would do virtual coffees with people that I didn't know. Your LinkedIn profile, making sure that you don't only look at it when you need a new job, that you're actively looking at it, maybe engaging with the posts that are going on so people know who you are. I think many times we could feel stuck because people don't know who we are, but we have to take some responsibility to make those connections and keep those connections going. And if it's stuck in regards to learning or growing, it's always great to ask your company if they, provide any resources for courses or not that you could learn or leadership opportunities. And if not, I would say, seek those out on your own. They are very important. You want to keep relevant, you want to keep learning and growing. And especially in today's market, we don't know how long things will last. And I don't think we're in a time where we can really take that for granted. I know people that are still in jobs for 10, 15, 20 years, and it just amazes me because that's not a norm that I know. I know transition and
right.
things always happen. So be prepared and take some ownership of that.
Right. It's not always like we kind of ventured out on our own, but sometimes, and I love this quote, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And sometimes it's as simple as your perspective. How are you viewing a certain situation? Why are things not aligning?
Yep.
And I'm sure these are what you come across. You mentioned earlier, it's not something that you know. Layoffs are a constant thing. And matter of fact, there's a lot happening right now. I'm watching a lot of people lose their job. How do people rebuild the confidence after rejection or layoff?
Yeah. That's definitely an
And
inward.
specifically women, right? Because
Right. It's
it's very different for us.
Well, and I know it personally as well, like you shared, so it's definitely an inward journey. It's nice when the transition is only 1 to 2 months and your network is working for you. It's a different story when your network is no longer working because the job market is very different. We're in some wild times, which I don't you know, I call it Y2K and .com on steroids. There's a lot like excitement going on, but there's also, a high cost of living and things and people losing their jobs. And
Yeah.
I just don't even think that's in the media realistically because there's so many other areas that are being focused on. So I think one, keep the faith. I think keep a structure of some sort, your daily structure of getting outside and exercising, get some sunlight. If you have a pet,
Yeah.
walk your dog. If you have friends, still go out and have some fun. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive. If you've done enough with your day on looking for a new job, pick up a new skill. Just be in that mode where you have a structure for yourself, a good morning, a good evening, and you call it a day because that's really all we can do is the day.
Yeah. Well, looking for a job is a full time job. So just putting that out there is absolutely perfect and not beating yourself up. Just like any job, you have to get through the no's to get to the yes. And there's just a lot of competition out there. You mentioned earlier personal brand, making sure that you're building that personal brand now and not waiting until you get let go before you start building it, because by then it's too late, and being able to leverage that network. So great points. Shifting a bit, What's something that you wish more leaders understood about their employees?
Yes, goodness. That's a kind of a hard one because I know sometimes leaders are put under, it might be more about the metrics or it more might be more about the bottom line or all these things that leaders are put under. And so it really takes someone who understands how to wear both hats with the people element as well.
Yeah.
Some people do it well, where they're engaging, they understand culture is important. They understand that, people love to know that they matter. Some companies do recognition and other things like that or other ways of engagement. I just feel that that is the most important thing is that someone knows that they matter in the role in whatever capacity that is, the people element, the human element.
Absolutely. That's something that I yearned for being in corporate was just that human connection. And as long as we're not feeling like numbers at the end of the day, it really goes a long way. You end up going above and beyond when you feel appreciated, right?
Yeah.
Do you think we've normalized burnout in corporate culture?
I mean, definitely. I think that working hard, working long hours, there's some companies that actually, because I just remember coming from the times of like, no, I can't take vacation. I actually still have some friends that are in corporate and, have all these vacation days that they don't take. And I think it's a mindset because there's other people in the company taking those vacations, but some of them, it's like, oh, I just got to keep, to the grind and there just needs to be a balance. So I think it
Well, there's the like some people have so much work piled on them that they're afraid to miss time because they know they're going to be so behind once they return. I think that's the biggest thing.
well, many people are operating probably in more than one role. And especially when things get tight and there are layoffs, you're doing more than one role. And so that is definitely a time that's very difficult to take time off. So I just think there's always room for improvement. And there's some companies, cultures that do it better than others. And there's some that still have a lot of work to do, even though we
Yeah.
think we've come that far, come far.
All right. So now we talked a little bit about professional development, right? Just because you've come from that space and you've seen that side of it. And there's a lot of women midlife who are in that corporate culture right now. But I want to shift over back to your coaching business and what you're seeing. What are the top three things that you're seeing right now in women who are midlife that have become challenges?
Yeah. I think one of the first challenges is self trust. I'm actually hosting an event tomorrow on that is to stop second guessing themselves, looking to ask for validation or for permission, which is something we're taught if you think about it from a very young age, whether it's your parents, whether it's the school, whether it's
Yeah.
women are a bit more well behaved. And so it's just really unlearning that, I need to get someone else's permission before I can trust my decision. And so I think self trust is one that's big.
But it's also a generational thing, right? Because when we were growing up, it was, you're to be seen, not heard. We don't want to, just keep your mouth shut, listen, like all of that, right? So I think both of them play a role.
Right.
Okay.
And then secondly, which kind of ties into that is people pleasing. So we're also taught to say yes and to be kind. And I didn't grow up learning what no was. I don't think I learned what no was until my 50s. I was, it's be nice. Be nice would be say yes when someone wants something or someone needs your time to always say yes, which talk about burnout, right? Being a yes
Yeah.
really is exhausting. And so learning the power of no and to set boundaries so that
Yeah.
it could be a give and take and learning that. And I mean, I know I've gone through that to learn that a relationship is 100% of one person's 50% and 100% of another person's 50%. So meaning that both are giving and receiving equally and someone as a female, as a woman is not continuing to overgive and let me just people please to keep this relationship going even if it's in a parent, right? It's like let me, it's
Yeah.
let someone have their feelings, let someone do their part. So that's another area. And
Well, let's just talk about like a normal thing. Let's just say you're married and you're tired and you don't want to cook dinner most nights, but you go force yourself to do it. And you're not doing it for you because if it were up to you, you'd probably just put something in the microwave, right? But you're doing it to please somebody else because you feel like it's your duty and you have to. And then if not, it's that vicious cycle of beating yourself up. Don't ask me how I know.
I won't ask you how you know.
But
But it's also ties into, I think, a woman's worth and that it also ties to partner dynamics. And
yes,
again, coming from my parental roles where my dad worked, my mom took care of the house and not and my one of my sisters managed that type of role in her relationship with her husband, but now many women work. So it just depends on yeah, what that engagement is with your partner
yeah.
and having the conversations, which I think is the communication part is always something that we're learning and growing when we're in relationships about ourselves and about the other person. Yeah.
Absolutely. Was that 3?
No. And then the third
Okay.
one,
Yeah, we got one more.
the third one is the identity shift. So women in
Mm,
midlife are letting go of a lot of identities in the roles of a parent, of let's say a longtime career person, whether what else I was gonna say, friendships, just all these identities that, if they're a volunteer, they have all these roles, right? And then things just start to get quieter. Things change, we're changing. And what we wanted to do before, we don't necessarily want to do anymore. And it is a weird
yeah.
shift because no one gives you a memo and says, hey, Suzanne, these are the this is how you're gonna change, and this is what you're gonna like now that you didn't like before. So I think the identity shift is another key part of just helping women, not feel alone. Everything's gonna be okay. It's a natural part of our process, and there's excitement and light and beautiful things on the other side.
So with these 3 topics that we just discussed that, challenges we're facing being women in midlife, what are some of the tools that you recommend to begin with?
Some of the tools that I recommend is one, always about getting support, asking for help. I think someone who hasn't done any such work, it's really a getting to know yourself process, knowing your likes and dislikes, knowing your wants and what you don't want, and just kind of that self knowledge, like learning about yourself. But I find self love is another key element. If a woman hasn't done that for herself, that's a very beautiful way to start in their journey is and there's plenty of things that I've partaken in, and there's plenty of coaches out there that focus on just learning to love yourself. Again, not having to outsource that to let me get love from my kids, let me get love from my partner, let me get love from my family of origin or my career. It's again learning to internalize that and have the what you're looking for basically within yourself, that's a really good start. Those are more humanistic elements, right? Like sometimes women will come to me more about career shift or, kids leaving. What do I want to do now? And it really gets into what's a passion of yours and putting your energy somewhere else. But I like how you brought that attention here into listeners because I think again, midlife and part of our journey as women is having to go inward at some point. I call it
Yeah.
coming home to yourself. And so it can look like different things for different women, right? Depending on where they're starting from.
Oh,
So,
yeah, definitely looking inward, and self-love is harder than it sounds, so there's a ton of work behind it. Well, I absolutely love what you're doing. I think it's so vital. There's a lot of different shifts in midlife, and then to your point, careers, things happen, kids grow up, and this everything's just thrown into the mix, so I think you're making a huge impact, Suzanne,
cute.
and I'm also looking forward to, meeting in person soon.
Yes.
But for everyone else, how can they get a hold of you?
Yes. So my website for coaching is www.empowermentcoachsuzanne. I also have my Instagram, which is empowerment.coach.suzanne. So you can see me there in my socials. My podcast is Men, Menopause, and Miracles, and it's a fun way to get to hear personal stories, personal encouragement about the midlife journey. And you can find that on Spotify, Apple, YouTube as well. And my upcoming thing tomorrow I have is stop second guessing yourself, 5 shifts to finally trust your next decision. And will have more such workshops coming, but reach out to me, say hello, let me know how I can help. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, to everyone listening, definitely reach out. Talking with Suzanne behind the scenes, she has a lot of passion. I can feel it from her. She really cares about what she does. And to me, that's the most vital thing. So, Suzanne, again, thank you so much for coming on today. I absolutely love this conversation. And I just think people are craving more honesty around success, leadership, growth, but also just being a woman in the middle of it all and what it actually takes to build a meaningful life and career without completely losing yourself in the process.
Amen.
So, one of the biggest takeaways for me is that real leadership from that side isn't just about performance metrics, it's about the people, human to human. It's about self awareness, emotional intelligence, and creating environments where people can actually thrive. And I think that's the authentic advantage. So, to everyone listening, if this episode resonated with you, make sure you share it with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, remember, you do not have to become somebody else to succeed. Just be you. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.